We're very pleased the fact that to date visitor satisfaction does remain high, but we're extremely conscious in our community, I think in general, and certainly we are within Destination Queenstown, of the pressures on the community and the risk, and on our infrastructure and facilities, and the risk that may pose to the visitor experience and therefore satisfaction going ahead. So yes, I'm concerned actually that we need to be investing in ensuring that visitor experience stays as good as it is today. And frankly, my aspiration that it gets even better, that we don't just invest to catch up and to keep up, but we are actually investing to stay ahead of the curve and making what is a really good experience today a great one in the future.
I guess for Queenstown, the trick must be to remain a world-class destination.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, that term is used a lot. But genuinely, I think we are a world-class destination, and all of the evidence suggests that over many years and still to today. We're an aspirational and desirable destination. We need to remain world-class, but what is world-class and how do you stay there? Because you can't just stay as you are as world-class. That's to my point earlier. You've actually got to aspire to be better than you are today. So absolutely we need to do that.
Did it come as a big surprise, even a shock to you a couple of months ago when your members said, please DQ, let's slow down and we don't want to continue marketing ourselves so much?
Yeah, I think we were disappointed we didn't get the increased funding we were looking for. But I'll take responsibility for not explaining well enough to our community and our members who we asked to vote on that, why we wanted that extra funding. For a long time now, Destination Queenstown has not been marketing our destination as a volume destination and we want more. For a long time that hasn't been what we've been doing with our funding. We've been very targeted and actually trying to curate the visitor, to the degree that we can influence it, the visitors that we want, which are higher value on a daily basis, but also coming at the time of year where we still do have some capacity, and that remains the case. We've got some shoulder capacity, but also we were wanting some funding to help us invest in researching and helping our community to understand the visitor pressures more so we can find some solutions for them. And it's that little bit of kind of involvement in destination management in a more holistic sense that we were wanting to help invest in and help our community with, and still do, by the way. The fact we didn't get the funding doesn't mean we're not going to do that. That still is exactly what we're hoping to influence.
You mentioned that holistic approach. Does that mean that eventually you could see things like economic development and tourism coming together? Are they really the same thing, or do you see them as separate?
Look, I think they are integral to each other. They can be different things. It depends how you frame them and design them to suit the community you're in. But in New Zealand today, half of all RTOs in the country sit within economic development agencies already. So they're literally a component part of EDAs. So the model is alive and well and working in many places. We haven't taken that approach here yet because of our structure, but there have been conversations, of course, for some years now about that being a possibility. The difference in Queenstown from many other places is that tourism being the size and driver of the economy that it is, it's not actually needing development as such. It's needing more of a curation, if you like, as I mentioned earlier, whereas there are other economic development opportunities to grow. So we want to diversify our economy. So the kind of makeup of our economy here is different, which suggests that we don't necessarily need to be together with an economic development agency, but we're certainly already working very closely with those aspirations in the community.
Because one of the issues, of course, in Queenstown is wages and high cost of living, and tourism famously is a low wage industry. Diversification away from tourism could raise wages. Would that be bad for tourism or good for tourism?
I think I would just sort of rephrase that a little. I think it's not diversifying away from tourism. I think it's adding to tourism. So diversifying to add to the tourism offering that we have today, which across the board, would look like perhaps generating a higher average wage and those things. I'd just like to qualify, if I could too, that sentiment around tourism being low wage economy. Component part, tourism's really interesting. Has really interesting characteristics. It's actually made up a whole bunch of different sectors and industries within themselves. So some component parts of tourism are a relatively low wage, and in particular hospitality, of course, and just by its nature. But not all of tourism is, low wage. And I think it's important to qualify that is we want young people to think about tourism as young educated people as a really viable, vibrant, great, career opportunity. And if we continue to talk about it in broad terms as a low wage sector, then we're not going to attract people, are we? So that's hence why I just like to qualify that a little. But back to the key point. Yeah, we really do. We support diversifying and growing our economy in other ways.
Obviously, you'll be aware of the sentiment in the community about infrastructure. Jim Bolt's been very clear that he doesn't think the border tax is going to make much difference. Do you think he's barking up the right tree with his bed tax, or does DQ see problems there?
I think many people who know me know that I support regional visitor levies or locally based visitor levies as a sustainable mechanism to fund the things that communities are having to invest in for the visitor experience. Government funds, and there have been numerous funds over the last few years that have to be applied for. They're usually for capital projects and other things. Will never go far enough to meet the needs in regions for sustainable, ongoing funding. It's all very well investing in a new toilet, which is what all these funds do, or a toilet or a car park or whatever. But the legacy burden of that investment is that local community then has to clean, maintain, grade, fix, improve over time. And so it's not these funds are not sustainable solutions, including the border levy. So we've also made a submission on that levy as Destination Queenstown on the border levy in support of the levy in as far as it goes. But we've also qualified that support by saying we also want government to actively investigate regional levies. So, we support that.
Now, coming together with Lake Wanaka Tourism, that seems quite exciting. Is that part of us growing up and learning how to market ourselves better and be more cohesive?
Well, I think you're slightly ahead of the game there. There's been no decisions at all about actually combining DQ and Lake Wanaka Tourism. That's currently being discussed by the two boards, and it's an ongoing discussion. And because it's a governance issue, it's not something that I've been directly involved in. And so it's undetermined yet what that outcome will be. But what I would say is that Lake Wanaka Tourism and Destination Queenstown work very closely together and have done for many years. We joint venture on ski campaigning for the region. We work together on long haul travel trade activities. So in many ways we are already working together, which a lot of people probably don't appreciate because don't do that overtly. So I think the intent to have common strategies from a district perspective and work together in an operational sense is what matters. But kind of watch the space. I think you'll have to ask my board ultimately where that falls out. But no decision. I can tell you no decisions have been made on that yet.
Okay, I guess the airport as a final question is an interesting one because they want to change the noise boundaries to bring in more people. And speaking to the chief exec, He says, look, if Air New Zealand and Qantas want to bring in heaps more people, it's not his job to say no. But there is a feeling, I think, in some parts of the community that this might be a good time to say, just hang on, let's get our act together in terms of infrastructure. What do you say to people in Queenstown and Wanaka who say, look, we've got too many people coming here, our infrastructure is behind, we are at dire risk of damaging our reputation if we don't slow things down?
I think the variables in there, you need to sort of look at them in different ways. I think, do we have too many people, and what should the number of people look like in the future, is directly linked to our ability to host and facilitate them, moving in and around the place and enjoying the experience here.
In a world-class way.
Yeah, in a world-class way. So, as we discussed earlier, there is a risk to that right now because our infrastructure is behind. Investment in our infrastructure to support that, whether it be public transport, road network, and a lot of plans, of course, underway currently thinking about ferries on the lake and although pedestrianising downtown, all those great things are not here yet. So, I would love them to be, worked on and sorted tomorrow. So I think we always should aspire, and we do, to have some growth, because I think if you plan for no growth, you're actually really risking, some downturn. You can't plan for no growth. You've got to plan for some growth. And let's remember too that we're in a community that has huge residential growth as much as visitor growth, which is adding, of course, to that infrastructure pressure. So I'm always really wary to say, what does that look like? I can remind people that back in 2012 we were coming off the back of quite a few years of no growth and people really struggling, and no international growth, arrivals growth, and that wasn't that long ago. And what that might look like in the next 1 or 2 years, who knows? Because oil prices are going up. All these things, they're macro, environmental impacts are things that just we never know how they might affect us. So we should aim for some growth, sustainable growth, high value growth, all the things that we've been working on for a long time, and growth at times of the year when we have capacity. But I accept entirely that it's appropriate that the community is currently saying, hang on, what does that look like? And we're really conscious of that. We've been very conscious of that for quite some time. So we don't have blinkers on in terms of saying, no, our job is just to market and get more people here. We are part of this community, and a sustainable, welcoming host community is actually the most important asset that any visitor destination can have. So if we risk that and lose that, and yeah, there's some cracks there now, I'm well aware of that, but if we lose that, then the visitor experience will degrade. Don't worry about the roads and the car parks and everything else. If our host community is not welcoming, we've lost it. So, so I want to be part of that conversation, actually, and it's part of our strategies. It's part of our the guiding principles we operate under is to ensure we have a focus on our place and the community, actually, just while we're also trying to meet the needs of our businesses for that, what that sustainable growth might actually look like. So,